Hey everyone, good morning and good evening. Okay, let's start with today's session. Let's see what exactly we are doing today. Let me quickly share my screen. Hopefully my screen is visible to you guys. Okay. So these were the two topics which were pending: availability zone and set. So we talked a bit about what exactly is resiliency, what exactly is availability, and how exactly we can tackle this in Azure Cloud. Okay, keeping that in mind, there are multiple availability and resiliency options in Azure. First is availability zones, availability set, VM scale set, load balancer type, Azure storage redundancy, and Azure side recovery. So all these, whatever options do you see, all this is talking about redundancy. So in a very layman term, if you have your application running on Azure Cloud, then you have to make sure that your application is up and running 24/7. Because of any unforeseen reason, your application should not go down. Just think of a criticality of an application. Think of that your application is a banking application. You have to be upright 24/7. How do you make sure that your application is running 24/7 from the infra level? Guys, I'm talking about from the infra level right now. We are not talking about at the layer 7. If you guys remember OSI layer, we are not talking about layer 7. We are talking about, we just spoke about layer 3, that was network layer. Now we are talking about infrastructure. How do we make sure my infrastructure is up and running? Okay, so that is what these options will provide. Now let's take an example of what exactly is availability zone. Let's take one each type one at a time, and let's see it in practical how exactly we can implement that. So before I explain availability zone, let me go back to my paint and let me create. Okay, before we understand the availability zone, let's understand this first. In each, this is a region. So till now what region we were selecting? East US, correct, for creating all our resources. So just assume this is the East US region which we have. So this is a region. Now what did I say earlier? Each region will have its own zone. So basically there are 3 zones each region will have. Now this is one zone, zone 1. Let's name it as zone 1. Let's create one more zone. Let's have this as zone 2, and let's have the third zone created. Let's have this as third zone. What exactly is zone? If you guys have forgotten, zone is nothing but the data center. Okay, these are all, this is how Azure will be dividing things. So this is my zone 1, this is my zone 2, and this is my zone 3. Excuse me. Okay, we got 3 zones in each region. Okay, so East US definitely have 3 zones, and mostly all the region whatever you see, they have three zones, but it's not necessary, guys. There are multiple regions which you will find they don't even have 2 zones. So in such region you will not be able to use all the services of Azure. All the availability zone, availability scale set, and all the services will not work. This will only work in the region where you have 3 zones. Okay, previously the 3 zone concept was not there in India, Asia Pacific. So now, but even in Asia region, Azure has 3 zones. Okay, now this zone is what? Zone is nothing but its data center. This data center will have its own power supply unit. This data center will have its own power supply unit. It will have its own cooling system. It will have its own networking. And plus the compute, your rack and everything, wherein you have your CPU, memory and those things. That is what makes a data center, correct? Each will have the same concept. Each zone will have the same concept. And these zones are connected with each other. These zones are connected with each other with a high availability fiber cables. What exactly it is connected with? High availability fiber cables. And the latency between these zones are, it is less than 2 ms, 2 milliseconds. So that means even though in East Europe, in East US, East US is not small, correct? It's pretty big. These zones are there in multiple cities also, and if your resources are divided into these zones, the latency is only 2 ms. So you'll not even come to know that your VM is there on zone 1, your hard drive is kept in zone 2. You'll not even come to know. That's next to negligible. Okay, that is what availability zone is all about, correct? So availability zone has a distinct power supply, network and cooling, and by designing your solution you can replicate your VMs in zones. What you will do, you will be replicating, like suppose you're creating a VM, a virtual machine now, for installing your web application, your databases and all. So what exactly you will do, your VM will be created over here, your hard disk will be replicated over here, your network card will be somewhere over here. This way you can select your zone, which zone your VM needs to be created. Like suppose if you're selecting that your VM needs to be created in zone 1, okay, so there is a great chance other services will be getting created on other zone automatically. So your services will be replicated on other zones. What is the benefit of this now? What if your this zone is down because of some XYZ reason? XYZ could be flood, it could be a terrorist attack, it could be anything, okay, because of which the data center is down. Now your service are not impacted. Your service will be getting served from zone 2 because you have avail the availability zone option. It's not free, guys. This is a replication which is happening over time, so it's not at all free. Please do check the availability zone charges. You'll come to know what exactly how much they do charge. So this is what availability zone is all about. So, and again, availability zone is a physically separated zone. So these are all physical location, guys. The zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, these are all physical location with its own dedicated power supply, cooling system, networking system and all. Okay, so when you select availability zone, your resources are divided into multiple zones and it gives you high resiliency, high redundancy in case of any unforeseen failures. Make sense what is availability zone is all about? Now let's go and see in practical how do we set up availability zone for my VM. Let's go to the cloud. Okay, let's create a VM first. Source group, DevOps mailer. Make sure, guys, again reiterating, once you're done with your practice, make sure to delete the resources. If you don't delete the resources, you'll get charged unnecessarily. Once you're done with your practice, make sure to delete your complete resource group. Don't keep it anything. Okay, I'll select East US. These are all my region, guys. All these are regions, so it's not necessary whatever regions you see, it all will have 3 zones. Okay, like suppose I doubt this Brazil, no, this is Qatar Central, does it has 3 zones? If I go into the availability option, I get availability zone. Yeah, even this has 3 zones. Which one? Norway. Even Norway has it. Okay, I think everyone has it now. East Asia. Yeah, even it has this. Okay, let's select East US. And when you select East US, if you see, there is an option of availability. This is the place where you will go and select what type you want. So it has availability zone, which we saw what exactly it is. Virtual machine skill set, this is something we'll see it on Monday, because it's a very important topic, and we'll see it on Monday. Availability set, this is what we'll see next. For now, let's stick with availability zone. And now when you select availability zone, there are 3 zones: zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. So which zone you want your VM to be created, you can go and select that. Okay, and based on your selection, your VM will be getting created over here, but all other things will get replicated on other zones also, making it highly available. Okay, security type, I'll keep it standard for now. Image Ubuntu 18.04, this is the image I'm selecting, so we'll stick with Linux machine. It is quick and fast, and we'll have 1 vCPU, 1 gig of memory. Authentication type, till now guys we are using user ID and password, but now this time we'll use SSH public key. Okay, so SSH is nothing but it's a private public key combination, using which you will be able to authenticate to your VM. Now the beauty of Azure is you don't have to create that private and public key by yourself. By just selecting, it will automatically generate that public key, private key for you. I don't have existing one. If you go and look into my existing, there's no existing key. So what I'll say, create a new pair key for me, and I give a username as DevOps Mela. So I don't have to worry about password and length and all. It's simply, it can create a key for me. So I'll just name it as DevOps Mela -pub -key. So a .pem key will be created. So that's nothing but using that key I'll be able to authenticate myself, and I'll be able to connect to my VM. Okay, let's see that. So this is the key which will be eventually generated at the end when we are done doing a review and create. At that time I'll have an option to create this key and download it. So that is something we'll see it. Inbound ports, I'll allow 80 and SSH 22 because I'll be deploying my application. Basically I'll be deploying an Apache application on top of it, because later I want to demonstrate load balancer also. So that is the reason I'll be deploying an application on this. Okay, coming back, disk, just networking. Okay, we don't even have a VNet. So this, we haven't created a virtual network guys, so this virtual network will get created automatically. This is what the subnet range will be, and this is, I need a public IP also, so I'll be selecting a public IP. So this will be auto created. I am not creating the virtual network manually right now, so this will be auto created right now. Management, it's okay. Monitoring, I'll disable it for now. Okay, review and create. So what exactly we are doing, I'm creating one single VM, okay, in a availability set, in a availability zone 1, and in case of disaster, I know my things are getting replicated on other zones also, so I'll have high availability. But alone, if you ask me, is it a best practice? Only the availability zone will make sure that your application is high resilient and all. Answer is no. Alone it cannot do. There are other scenarios also which we need to tackle. Okay, generate new key. I'll just click on generate new key. So it will basically download that key on my local. Okay, see, the PEMP key is getting downloaded on my local system. Perfect. Let's wait while it is creating the virtual machine for me. Anyone, any questions? Any question, any concern? Okay, great. Let's wait. I'm just removing this, guys, and I'll just take one part of it. That is zone 1. Okay, so we know the region, we know everything, what is region, what are the zones. Now we talk about more insight about what is there in the zone 1. In zone 1, what do we have in data centers? We have racks. Correct. What is rack? Where your compute devices are kept. Compute devices, when I say, I'm talking about your CPU, memory, your firewall, your switches, and all this. These are compute devices. Just imagine this is rack 1, and you got your rack 2 over here. This is zone 1. And in zone 1 you got 2 racks. So there are 100 of racks in zone, but I'm just demonstrating with 2 racks. So this is rack 1, where your compute devices are kept, where exactly your VMs are getting created, and this is rack 2. Okay, just keep it till here. Let's go back and see if the resources are created. Okay, the resources are created. How do we verify if it is created in availability zone? So if you come back and see it, do you see there is an availability zone selected over here? It is showing 1. So this VM is created in availability zone 1. And if you come to availability and scaling option, this is what you will see. And if you go to the naming convention, all resources, see this naming convention. The NIC card is created in zone 1. All this, how it is distributed. You'll not even come to know, guys, where exactly things are getting created, but don't worry, this is highly available right now. It is getting replicated into your multiple zones. Okay, and login and all will be exact same. There's nothing different. The only difference is right now your VM is getting replicated on other zones also, as you have created this VM into a availability zone. Okay, now let's see the login part. How do we log in? Using the key. Let's open bash. Okay, where exactly my keys are? My keys are in downloads, correct? This is the place where my key got downloaded. It's taking time. The download has a good amount of files in it. Let's wait, or else directly go and look into it. Yeah, there's a key over here. So let's copy this key name. Now how do we connect? SSH-I. This is the key. -I because I need to provide the key information where exactly the key is. So if you guys look, I am where exactly I am right now. I am in the download section. So I can simply pass the key name and I'll be able to connect. DevOps Mela at, what is the public IP? Done. If I want, I can even map a DNS to it. I'll show you in the next VM when I create. We can do a DNS mapping also. Okay, we are logged in right now. We are inside the VM. This is the IP, the private IP. Now let me quickly go and install an Apache server to it, and let me have my own custom application deployed on Apache, so that when we do load balancing we'll come to know that how the request is getting routed. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just quickly install Apache sudo update. Don't worry about this command, guys. After this, VM and storage account will be covering Linux basic. So in the Linux basic, I'll be covering package management, I'll be covering all the basic commands, and how do we work with Linux, everything will be covered. So don't worry, even though if you don't know how to work with Linux. App install Apache 2. Okay, so I'm installing Apache. Apache is nothing but it's a static web server, guys, wherein you can deploy your application, web application, and it can be a static web application mainly. Okay, so I got Apache installed. If you want to quickly verify if the Apache is installed or not, I can do a quick systemctl status Apache 2. It's running. Okay, so it's running right now, but it if you go and look into this public, it will give you the default Apache page, which I don't want. I want something of my own. So let me go to root user and let me write echo welcome from VM1. Okay, so this is the message I want to print. DevOps mail. Okay, this is the message which I want to print. Where exactly the static files are kept? The files are kept into where www html index.html. This is the place from where you're getting this page. This page you're getting it from this location, where www html index.html. And because it's a normal user cannot edit this file, that's why I have switched to a root user right now. Done. Now I can just simply exit out from the root user and I can restart my Apache. Done. Let me refresh it. Welcome from VM1 DevOps mail. Okay, this looks good. Why exactly I did this, we'll talk about that later. Now this is what availability zone is all about. Okay, now the other part is availability set. Now zone, we talked about that zone has multiple in a region, it will replicate things into multiple racks, multiple zones and things like that. Now inside zone there are multiple racks. Now we talked about at the high level if the zone is down. Now let's spoke about come to at the low level. What if this rack itself goes down where your VM was hosted inside zone 1? Quite possible, correct? It is definitely quite possible that inside the zone, the rack which you have where your VM was hosted, even though you have selected availability zone, made sure that your VMs are replicated in multiple zones, but the VM at the first place where it was created itself is down. Now the rack is gone, there's some hardware failure, and because of which the rack is down. How do you protect your VM from this? So there is a concept called availability set. Availability set is nothing but it's a logical grouping of VMs. Okay, so it's a logical grouping. So this is the grouping done automatically by Microsoft. Based on Microsoft will try and understand how your application is built to provide you redundancy and availability. Now suppose you have two VMs hosting your web 1 and web 2. This is your web 1, like the one web application 1. Now this is your web 2. So this is the same application, the only thing is it is two different VMs and it is hosted on two different VMs, web 2. Now each will have its own data center databases also. Just think of this as DB1 and to maintain high resiliency, what did you do? You have created DB2 also. Okay, so you made sure that you have created multiple VMs, you have segregated, and things are getting through multiple VMs. Now what if this buddy itself is down? Normally it will not happen, but just think of patching activity on your VMs because these VMs and everything is maintained by Azure, correct? What if there is an update going on in the backdrop? When there is an update, definitely these VMs will go down, and these VMs are down, it will not serve any packages, it will not serve your application, and it should get routed automatically. What if Microsoft decided that all this will happen at once? This rack will go down, this rack will go down, and they will start the patching for themselves. Microsoft doesn't know where exactly you are, what you have hosting, how important it is. Microsoft doesn't know. Microsoft will do his patching activity at any given point of time, and this entire thing will go down, and it will make sure that your application is also down. How do we tackle such things in Azure? So this can be done using Microsoft Availability Set. So when you create an availability set for your VMs, so basically you're telling Microsoft, see, this is my VMs which has same set of application running, and I don't want all these VMs to go down at any point of time at a given point. So what Microsoft will do, Microsoft will do a logical grouping of this VM, and they will distribute this distribution. What you see, this is not we are doing. This will happen through Microsoft, wherein they will have a nice similar looking application in one rack, another application in other rack. This is automatically, it will not happen, guys. Sorry, this will manually, you cannot decide in which rack your VMs will be getting created. It will get created randomly anywhere. But this grouping which you see, this is a logical grouping done by Microsoft now. Microsoft will go and do, when you select availability set, Microsoft, and make sure that this application which is serving the same purpose, everything is not kept in one rack. What will happen if they are keeping everything in one rack? If this goes for patching or any other maintenance activity, everything goes down. So they will do a logical grouping, and they will distribute your resources in multiple racks. Again, rack is nothing but your compute, wherein you have your CPU, you have your memory, you have your hard disk, you have your network. That is what a rack. When you go inside a data center, you will see boxes, big boxes. Inside those boxes, you will see all those compute kept, nothing else. Okay, so this grouping which you see, this is nothing but a logical grouping done by Microsoft when you do a select availability set to deploy your application. Now each rack will have its own power supply, it will have its own hardware, and everything. It will have all of its own. So this rack, this thing will have its own power supply. If there is a power supply failure, no worries, the request is getting served by other rack. Okay, each will have its own networking. Okay, even though it is connected to the main circuit, but it will have its own power supply and everything, even the network outage. And physical hardware failure also. It will tackle any power supply unit issues, network outage, and physical hardware failure. So this is known as, so this rack, each rack will have such features. Okay, this is known as, this complete rack with this features is known as fault domain. So fault domain, let me write fault domain over here. Just remember all these words, definitely you'll get questions in interview. Fault domain basically defines the group of virtual machines that shares a common power supply and network switches. So this is fault domain 1 and this is fault domain 2. This is how it will be segregated. Now when Microsoft is doing the patching or maintenance activity, it will make sure one fault domain is maintained one at a time. It will not go and start maintenance activity on both the fault domains at once. It will do one at a time. One this is done, one this is up and running, then it will go to the other one. This way it will make sure that the application which is logically divided now will not get impacted. If this server is down for XYZ reason, the request will be served from you. And this is the logical grouping will be done by Microsoft automatically, taking into the consideration what type of application you have deployed. Is it a similar looking application? What database it is referring? Based on that, it will automatically divide the VMs in multiple racks. It will make sure that similar VMs are not kept in the same rack. It will not create this web 2 over here. It will not create if you select availability set. Okay. Now when there is a patching and updating activity, there could be a chance that all this can go, this part can go at once. It's all happening through a algorithm. No one is sitting and doing things, correct guys? So it's all happening through algorithm. Now there is a great chance that this VM and this VM may go into a patching activity at once, correct? There's a great chance. So for ignoring such things, there is one more concept in Microsoft inside the availability set. Availability set is free, guys. The only charges for availability set is the number of VMs you create. So there is no, basically there's no charges for availability set, selecting availability set. Okay. Now there is a great chance that all these VMs can go in, update and patching at once while the patching and things are happening, or when there is a power supply failure in one of the rack and things like that. So what Microsoft had come up with, there's one more concept called update domain. So each rack will have a number update domain. Now what exactly is update domain, we'll understand that in a bit. It will have something called update domain 1 and it will have something called update domain 2. So all your VMs will be tagged with update domain, and your DB will have update domain 1 and 3. So what it will do, when it is updating, it will make sure that only this portion of update domain is impacted. Like suppose this is update domain 3. So when the actual update is happening, it will make sure only this portion of inside the rack there are multiple VMs. Only this portion update is happening and this portion is not touched. Once this is updated successfully, then only it will move on to the other set. This is how again one more grouping is done by Microsoft for updating your resources. Okay, this way Microsoft will make sure that no running VMs, no services are impacted, and it make sure that there is a high availability and high resiliency at any given point of time. If you have availability set enabled, Microsoft guarantees you 99.95% of SLA. When I say SLA, service level agreement, that any given point of time, whatever applications VMs you have installed in availability set, you will have this much of availability. 99.95% of SLA, that is what Microsoft is guaranteeing. If you go and calculate this SLA, so overall in a year, Microsoft will take a downtime of around 15 to 16 hours. Only in 365 days, Microsoft will take only 15 to 16 hours of downtime if you go and calculate this SLA using the algorithm. Okay, any questions? So update domain, basically it will indicate group of virtual machines and underlying physical hardware that can be rebooted at any point of time at the same time. So basically Microsoft, what it will do, it will group these VMs together and it will reboot these VMs at the same time. This will get rebooted at the same time. That is what update domain basically takes care of, so that it should not get rebooted. What will happen there if there's any unforced reason? If all the VMs are getting rebooted at the same time, your application is getting impacted. So with this update domain concept, it will logical group your VMs and which is not similar in nature, and it will reboot those VMs at the same time. That is what update domain is all about. Okay, suppose if you have 6 VMs, VM 1 2 3 4 5 6, wherein your application is hosted, so it will reboot the first VM and eventually second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. This is how the grouping in the update domain will be done. So two important concepts: fault domain and update domain. Fault domain will have its own dedicated power supply and network outage, network card and everything. And with physical, if there's a physical hardware failure also, then it will automatically serve your request from other rack. Okay, so each rack serves as a fault domain. Update domain, inside the rack, whatever VMs you have created, those VMs are tagged as update domain 1 2 3 4, making sure the grouping is done in such a way, making sure all those VMs which is grouped in the update domain gets rebooted at the same time without having any impact on your application. Okay, so that is how, because if I reboot this web1 and db1, there's no impact, my request will be served from here. Okay, but what if I reboot db1 and db2, there's no database now. If this is how the things are getting rebooted, then if there's no database, your application is down. So that is what logical grouping is done by Microsoft very smartly, and that is done automatically. There's no one sitting there and doing things for you, making sure that two resources which is serving the request is not rebooted or patched or updated at the same time. It is divided and done at a right time. So it should not even happen that web1 and web2 is getting rebooted. If this is, then your application is down. Okay, so this is how Microsoft will do the auto grouping using the fault domain concept and the update domain concept. Okay guys, this is two very important topic in availability set: fault domain and update domain. Okay, so again, any questions guys on this? Okay, if there's no question, then each availability set can be configured with up to 3 fault domain. So when you're creating an availability set, it can be created using 3 fault domain. So it will, any given point of time, it will have 3 fault domain and it will have 5 update domain. No, sorry, it will have 20 update domain. So such kind of replication which is happening. Each the availability set which you will create, it will have at least 3 fault domain and 20 update domain. And once this is configured, changes cannot be made. If you have created an availability set and you have configured your fault domain and update domain, then the changes cannot be you cannot go and update the changes. It is fixed. Okay. How do we work with this? Let's go and create an availability set and see. Anyone has any questions, guys, till now?
Yeah, one question.
Yeah, tell me.
Basically, availability set is for only single application. No, when we talk about one particular application, it will be replicated using availability set.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So when you basically define your application, when you create an infrastructure for your application, automatically Microsoft will identify this is a similar application, because for that application you'll have 4-5 VMs created, databases created, everything is linked together with, and using REST API all the transaction is happening right now. So that is Microsoft will identify, okay, this is a similar looking application, and when you keep those application into an availability set, so you have to go and create an availability set, keep those application into availability set. Automatically, depending upon the numbers of fault domain and update domain you have selected, like suppose you have selected two fault domain. When we create an availability set, you'll come to know you selected two fault domains. So basically, your application will be divided into two racks inside the data center. So that way, how logically your racks will be selected. Now you will selected update domain 5. So all your applications, your VMs, your infra will be divided into 5 update domain. So one update domain will be rebooted at one given point of time. All will not get rebooted. That way you will make sure that whenever there is a reboot, whenever there is some sort of patching or maintenance activity is happening, it's happening one at a time. Update 1, it's happening 1, update 2, update 3, update 4, update 5, not everything at once. Even though, just imagine if there are update domain 1 2 in same rack, 1 2 is there in the same rack, it will not go and reboot update 1 and 2 at the same time. It will go and reboot your update 1 first. Once that is done, then it will take the other one, hence, and this is all done automatically. You'll not even come to in your front end that something has happened. Okay, and in the third, fourth, fifth, this is how they will do the maintenance activity, because maintenance activity is also required. Correct, the data center is very big. There are lots of machineries, there are lots of things kept, and they need to keep on updating things, they need to keep on maintaining things, and they don't know what is installed inside it. Correct. So from the front end, this is how you will make sure that whatever maintenance activity they do, it is not impacting my application. Same goes with your fault domain, that is your update domain. Same goes with your fault domain. Each rack has its own power supply, it has its own network interface and things like that. If the complete rack has some issues where they are shifting from rack 1 to rack 2 for some XYZ reason, something has happened with rack 1. If your application is just installed in fault domain 1, if you have selected fault domain 1, so that means your application is gone for a toss. So at least you should have 2 fault domain or 3 fault domain minimum. Maximum you can select whatever you want, but one availability set will allow only 3 fault domain and 20 update domain. If you're creating one more availability set, then you will have more 3, but again it will charge you. The VMs what you create, the VMs cost. Availability set has no charges, guys. Only the VMs what you create, that costing will be applicable. Okay.
Yeah. Uh, yeah.
Any other question before we start with availability set making? I think we are
Yeah.
running behind.
Let's say one application, like we are using one VM to for one particular application. Now, when we go for availability set, it automatically copies that particular application which we uh,
No.
no, it's not like that. Okay.
No. If you're creating just one VM, then there's no point of using availability set, because that VM itself is down. What you will do? So if you're creating an application, so definitely that application will minimum will have two VMs. The reason is, if one of the VM is down, the other VM is serving your request.
Okay,
Correct?
it means yeah, it means explicitly we need like yeah, being a developers, like we need to create two VMs
At
explicitly. No, automatically it won't take care if we select availability set something like that.
No,
Like we
automatically it will not select.
Won't.
Yeah,
Okay.
the automatically one, there is one more concept, virtual machine skill set. Depending upon your load, it can create new VMs automatically. That is something we'll see it on Monday. And that is very interesting topic, VM skill set. Okay, that
Sure.
is what you will be using in reality. This availability set, availability zone is just the building blocks. The major what I'll suggest for high resiliency and high redundancy, it's VM skill set. We'll talk about VM skill set later, but for now let's focus on these basic things. Okay,
Sure.
so
Sure.
if you look over here, create an availability set to provide redundancy for your application. Create two or more virtual machines. So it is saying two or more virtual machines. Then only you can make utilize availability set well, guys. If you have one virtual machine and your application is deployed, everything deployed on that VM, what logical grouping Microsoft will do? Nothing, no grouping will happen then. If the rack is down, your VM is down. As simple as that. Then you can think of other option, disaster recovery and things like that. But yeah, one VM definitely cannot provide availability and resiliency to you, to your application. And how will your load balancer will load balance your traffic? Nothing. One VM, single VM cannot do anything. Okay, so I'm creating only one VM just to demo, but in reality there should be multiple VMs in even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. This is how your VM should be. Okay, now this is how availability set. Region name, let's name it as DevOps Mela AV. Okay, availability. Region East US, see this fault domain. You can, how many fault domain? In free tier I can select, in one availability set I can select maximum of 3 and update domain maximum of 20. Okay, virtual machine, the same fault domain share common power supply and physical network switches. Update domain, virtual machine, the same update domain will restart together. Keep this in mind. Virtual machine, the same update domain. If you have your VM1 and DB1 into same update domain 1, both the things will be restarted at any given point of time together, not separately. Doing the planned maintenance. Azure never restarts more than one update domain at a time. Okay, Azure will never restart more than one update domain at a time. So what did I say over here? If you have the grouping done, update domain 1, update domain, so this is all grouped together with update domain 1. So this is how this will be restarted. It will not restart these VMs. That is how update domain works. So I'll keep it 2 for now, 2 fault domain, and I'll keep this as 5 update domain. Okay, manage this, just ignore it for now. Advanced proximity placement group. Okay, proximity is again a different concept, guys. Proximity is nothing but making sure that your application hardware are in a very nearby location. It should not happen that your one web application is there in rack 1, your other application is there in zone 2 rack 2. No. So if you select proximity, so with proximity what will happen with proximity grouping, it will allow Azure resource physically closer together in the same region. So within the proximity range, if you enable proximity placement group, this is not that required. If you have such highly available that there shouldn't be even a 2 ms millisecond network latency, then you may go and select this proximity placement group. But if you don't have any such requirements, then definitely this is not required. Who will use this? All your trading companies wherein you do share market trading, within where even 1 second is like a big call. At that time you may have such proximity placement group, which will make sure that all your resources are physically in a very nearby location, so that there is no latency at all. Okay, that time you may use proximity. Now let me go and create this availability set. So as of now we are just creating availability set. Now in this availability set I'll go and create one VM. I'll just create one VM, but if you want multiple VMs to be created, even that is fine. Because we are using free tier, guys, free tier has restrictions. I cannot have more than 3 public IP created. If I want to create more than 3 public IP, I may have to go and increase the quota, which they will not allow because we are into free tier. I have to convert myself as pay-as-you-go for that. So that is the reason I'm not launching multiple VMs. Okay, I have the availability set. What I'll do, I'll quickly go and create one more VM. And this VM I'll place it into availability set now, the one which we created. Name it as VM2. Region East US is okay. Availability option, this time I'll select availability set. And in availability set we have a availability set, correct? This is something we just created. DevOps Mela -AV, there's a typo over here, that's okay. And SSH, I'll stick with SSH, DevOps Mela. And I do have a key this time, correct? Existing key. So I should have the key over here. So I'll be using the same key even for this login. And this I'll select port 80 and H2. Rest everything is okay. Let's monitor and disable this. Okay. So what did I do? I just created one VM. If I want more VMs to be created inside that availability set, I can do that. I have a disk failure. Why? What is the failure? Just give me 1 minute, guys. This is all restriction happens because of free tier account. VM2. This is okay. I don't see any error right now. Why there was an error that time? Okay, this time hopefully there's no error. Okay, weird. Okay, if you want, as I said, multiple VMs to be created in this availability set, you're free to go and do it. But even if you guys are using free tier, you may get different sort of errors because of quota. Because each VM you create, it will assign a disk, it will assign a public IP, it will assign a network card, and all this has restrictions in free tier. You cannot have more than 3 public IP, you cannot have more than 2 VMs, and such restrictions are there in free tier. If you want to avoid such restriction, you need to upgrade your subscription from free tier to pay-as-you-go, which I will not suggest. Once you are very familiar with all the services, once you are very familiar with all the charges, then you can go and do it, and you can take the responsibility of getting charged extra. But right now, while you're learning, no. That is the whole purpose why I'm using free tier. I have a pay-as-you-go account also, just to experience, because I may keep launching services, I may not have any issues, but in your case you may start facing that issue. So that is the reason even I am using free tier. So whatever error I get, that error will be replicated to you guys also. Okay, this is my VM2. Let's quickly set this up. Man, I want to cover the topic of load balancer also today, so let's do this. Okay, so it's the same key, same user ID, so nothing I have to change. I'll simply go and go inside this. Okay, I'm there inside this VM. Now how do we verify if the things are there in availability set? If you come down, let's refresh this. Did we select availability set while creating? I doubt we forgot. Wait. No, there was no availability set selected. No availability set. So like while creating the next time we didn't select the availability set. Okay, let's create one more VM then. So we forgot to check that box. Hopefully I should be able to create VM3. Now this option we have to select, availability option, availability set. Then you have to go and create your availability set. This was not selected at that point of time. Now let's go and do it again. Hopefully it should go through now. Same key. I'm using same port. Hopefully no error till now. I can have 3 public IPs, that is for sure. Let's do a review and create. No, requirement information missing is not valid. Which required information it is asking for? This one. Gen 2, there's a requirement, guys. So if I'm selecting this manage, now this availability set requires unmanaged disk. Now when I'm selecting unmanaged, there's a Zen 2 VMs which we are selecting, the generation 2 VMs. It needs managed disk. Okay, this is what the issue is. Now we have to go and change the Zen 2 to Zen 1. Let's see this. No, it's not allowing. Okay, there's some restrictions at the disk level right now. It is not letting us to select in the availability zone. It is not letting us to select that particular VM. So I have to go to the previous old one. Zen 1 VMs. We'll have to change the VM size itself now. Not images. That was the whole purpose why it was not allowing us to create VM. See all the sizes. In this I have to go with Zen 1. I'm not sure. Manage disk. Older generation size. This was all supported. Will this work? Let's select this. VM3. The size is currently unavailable in your subscription. Not available for your subscription. Again, this is a quota issue, guys. Though we cannot select DS1. That is again a different set of restrictions which we have it in free tier. It is asking to go and request for a quota. So basically a ticket will be created. It will be sent to Microsoft. Then Microsoft will go and check your account. Then based on that decision they will see if a quota can be increased or not. So let's ignore this availability set for now. We already have availability set created. I'll see it on Monday, because availability set any which ways will not be using, guys. We'll be using virtual machine skill set in reality. I just wanted to cover this basic concept before we jump on to virtual, because virtual machine skill set makes use of availability set all together in a combination. It uses plus load balancer, so everything it uses in a combination. So for now, let's focus on the load balancer thing, because that is the topic I wanted to give you guys to go and practice in during the weekend. So let me set up Apache on this server also. I am already logged in on this server. Let's go and set up and let's see how the load balancer will work. Give me one quick minute. I'm just removing this all. Okay, now imagine this is what we are creating, correct? VM1, and it is hosting your application, web application, correct? Second, you have something called the VM2, wherein you are hosting your other application, VM2, wherein you have your other Apache web application. Now these both are serving the same application. Okay, now you want the traffic to be distributed, so whatever traffic which is coming out from outside, you want the traffic, like suppose from the internet, the traffic which is popping in from internet, it should go to your load balancer first, and based on load balancer will take care which VM will serve the request. Now suppose if this VM is down for some XYZ reason, the load balancer will make sure all the request is going to this VM. Okay, and if suppose this VM is highly exhausted, then it will make sure this is again the VMs are served from this. So any given point of time your application is not down. So I just gave you two examples of two VMs, but in reality there could be 100 of VMs which will be serving your request. And load balancer responsibility is to make sure the load is balanced across all the VMs. If there are 4 VMs, suppose you are adding 4 VMs to it for serving your load balance, so 25% of network will be application will be transported from here, 25 of requests will be transported from here, 25. This is how the calculation happens. If you want to go and change the calculation from the bottom, even that is possible. So by combining load balancer with availability zone and availability set, we can get most application resilient. Okay, that is what virtual machine scale set will do. So Azure load balancer, what it will do, it will distribute traffic between multiple virtual machines. Okay, so what exactly it will do, it will do the distribution of your traffic in multiple virtual machines. That is what load balancer is meant for. So we'll go and create this load balancer, and we do have two VMs, correct? We have created VM1 and VM2, and we have our application running on top of it. So I'll make sure both VMs are backend off. So this becomes your front end. So whatever request will come, it will come to your load balancer, it will not come to your VMs. So this public IP, so your load balancer will also have one public IP, which will eventually be exposed on the internet. So all your VMs will be in the back end. Again, a security. So if someone tries to hack into your application, where exactly they will reach? They will reach at the load balancer. They'll not even come to your actual VMs. So this will be remain in the backend, and all your traffic will come from this public IP. Yeah. Questions?
Yeah, please. The load balancing, what is the correlation between the load balancing and the Bastion host you talked about yesterday?
Okay, Bastion host is just to log in. When you want to SSH RDP, Bastion host is not serving, it's not routing your traffic. So why exactly did we use Bastion host? The question is, when the port 22, that is SSH what you're doing, and the port 3389, these are very generic ports, and the whole world knows if you open such ports, there is a great chance that you're opening a door for a hackers to enter your machine. Correct? By adding an additional layer of best and host, what we are doing, we are not providing any public IP to my VMs. Secondly, we are not providing any ports such as 22 and 3389 at the VM security level, security group. And whenever we want to log in to that particular VM, definitely we'll have to log in, we have to set up our application and everything on that particular VM. So how do we log in if we don't open the port 22? So for the login purpose, for getting connectivity onto that particular VM, we use best and host. Now load balancer is different. Load balancer is working at the 7th layer of your OSI. If you talk about OSI layer, where your web application is deployed, now when people try to access your web application, what they will do, from internet, they will put in the domain name like www.azure.com. What exactly you're putting? You're putting a domain name, correct? That domain name, using your DNS server, that domain name maps to your public IP eventually. That public IP will send the request to your VM. If you don't have this load balancer in between, the request will directly come to your VM. And just imagine if there's some unforeseen hit, if there's a DOS attack wherein there are thousands of requests is coming to your VM at once. What will happen? It will eventually make your VM down. But there are genuine request traffic coming in. Just suppose there is a festive season and you are visiting Amazon.com, the website, for shopping. And in such cases, if you don't have a load balancer in between, what will happen? All the requests will come to this VM and your application Amazon.com is down. It's not serving any. What will? It's a cost effect. It's a failure from the Amazon side. It is not able to serve request. By just adding a load balancer, what will happen? The traffic will be distributed in multiple VMs now. If there are thousands of requests, 250, 250, 250, 250. This is how the VMs will, all the traffic will be distributed. Okay, and if suppose there are more loads, then more VMs will be automatically added. And once the load is gone, these VMs will be automatically deleted. That is virtual machine scale set. That is something we'll talk about in future. But for now, let's focus on how the network will be distributed. So the load balancer is not for your login purpose, or it will not. This is for distributing a network traffic, okay, to your underlying VMs. So these two VMs which we have, just imagine these two VMs are serving the same application. What they are doing, they're serving the same application. Now I'll demonstrate how whenever you try to access your application, how the network is getting divided into VM1 and VM2. That is what we'll see now. Okay, for first, let me go and install an application on it first. Give me one quick minute. Let me quickly go and install Apache. I'll be sharing the steps, guys, so whatever I'm running right now, for your practice, don't worry. I have the steps written. I'll be sharing the steps. And this is something that definitely you guys need to go and practice all this, because if you don't practice, you'll not understand anything. Okay, the next topic which we are covering on Monday will be virtual machine scale set, and that has combination of availability zone, availability scale set. It will have load balancer and many things. Okay, so that is the whole purpose why I'm covering these small topics right now. Okay, let's go and switch to, and let's echo, and this time I'll write welcome from VM2. So at least when we're trying to access this application, we'll come to know from where exactly we are getting the request. Done. Let's exit out of it and let's restart your system CPU. Restart Apache 2. Done. Now let's go and verify if we are able to view the page. Okay, this looks good. Welcome to VM2. So in this diagram we got this created, VM1 created, VM2 created. Now we need to create this load balancer, and we need to, in the front end, all the requests should come from here, not to my VM1 directly. Now what I'm doing right now, by using this IP, what I'm doing, I'm connecting to this, I'm hitting this VM directly right now. Okay, it's not routing, it's not doing any routing as such. I'm directly hitting to this VM, so which is working right now. But I want the traffic to route from load balancer, not directly to my VM. How do I do it? For that I need to create a load balancer. I can go and try creating a load balancer. Now this is the load balancer which I'll be creating. Make use of same resource group. I'll give the name, instance name, LB DevOps Mela, something like this. SKU, it's a stock unit. Again, it's up to what type of SKU you want to select, standard, gateway, basic. Based on that, the charges will be applicable. So we can check this load balancer charges from the Azure calculator, which we saw yesterday. Type, you want public load balancer or internal, whether you want a public load balancer or private load balancer. So I want public. This is my front end application, correct? People will be accessing this application from internet, so I'll keep it public. Tier, I'll take regional. Now this is where your front end IP will be configured. So now all your requests will come to this IP, which I will be creating now. So I'll just name it as LB front end FE IP, something like this. Now I'll create a new IP, guys. LB pub IP. Make sure give a good naming convention so that you should know what exactly you're doing. Okay, there's no gateway for now, so this is just a IP which I have created. So basically I'm assigning a public IP over here by doing this. The step which I did right now, I'm just assigning a public IP. Now backend pool. This is asking where the request will go. If people comes to this load balancer, where you want to route the request. So you want to basically route the request here, correct? To here and this IPs, to these VMs. So that is what backend pool is all about. So if I go and click, name the backend pool, I will write as LB backend pool, and I'll select my network. This is a virtual network where my VMs are. Backend pool configuration you can do with the NIC card or you can do with IP address. So I'll select IP address and I'll select both the IPs. This is one VM, this is my other VM. So basically what will happen, whatever network traffic comes in, it will go to my private IP. So the public IP which we have initially added, that is not required. If I go and remove the public IP, still my application will be accessible. Okay, because I am assigning a public IP to my load balancer. Save it. Done. Inbound rules. Do you want on which port you want the request to come in? So your web application listens on port 80, correct? So that is what my inbound rules should be. LB rules. What is your front end IP? That's your load balancer IP. What's your backend pool? The one which we just created. What is the port? 80. The request will come from port 80. What is the backend port? Again the request will be sent to port 80 itself. Health probe. Health probe is nothing but it will make sure that your VMs are healthy. These VMs are healthy. If the VMs are not healthy, it will not go and send request to these VMs. That is what health probe means. So what I exactly do, it does a quick ping on port 80 and checks if the VMs are healthy. If it's not getting any response from the VM, that means it will mark that VM as unhealthy. Okay, so let's create a health probe. VM HP stands for health probe. Protocol HTTP. Okay, interval each 5 seconds it will go and do it. It will go and check if there's a response on port 80. Okay, rest of other things, let's keep it as it is. Natting, I'm not setting up natting, guys. Natting, we know what exactly natting is, but for now I'm not setting up any natting. Done. What all things did we set for setting up load balancer? We set front end IP over here, that is load balancer IP. We set front end IP, we set front end rules. Now this both server becomes for your backend. This both your server becomes your backend. For backend, what you have allowed, again you have set up backend rules to allow port 80. Then you have what else you did? You have added okay, yeah, you have added the IPs from front end, the private IPs. This is what you did for setting up load balancer. Create. If I go and deassociate the public IP which is there with my VMs right now, still I can access my VMs, because all thanks to this load balancer, my load balancer has a public IP right now. I can access my application from this public IP itself. That is the beauty of load balancer. And every company will have its own load balancer, a different kind of load balancer, which will be doing the exact same thing. Nothing different will happen, guys. This is how all your front-end application are kept behind the load balancer, and everything is served from the load balancer itself. The load balancer will divert your traffic, and the load balancer knows it from where to go. That is what we have defined, front-end and back-end rules. That is, we are telling the load balancer that the request will come from 80 from internet. That 80 request should go to my VMs on port 80 itself. Usually it is 443. From internet the request will come from 443, that is HTTPS. Then from 443 the request goes to 80. In reality that happens. Okay, this is a load balancer. Open the load balancer. This is your load balancer rule. Your health probe, it will quickly check how many backend pools do we have. We have 2 VMs, and if you go and see the front-end IP, this is the load balancer IP on which your application will be accessible. How do we test it? I'll quickly go do HTTPA and I'll open this. What do you see now? Welcome to VM1 DevOps Mela. Now let's open one more time. Again it's serving VM1. Now let's open some other browser. Let's open Microsoft Edge. Because I'm sending the request from the same system, that is the reason it's caching that VM1 for me, and it's again and again diverting my traffic to that VM itself. Guys, can someone try this public at your system, public IP, and see whether it's showing VM2 or not, or did we write VM1 everywhere? Just try at your end.
Yeah, I'm getting VM2.
Perfect. Anyone else? VM1, VM2? Yeah, VM2. So this is how my system is not giving VM2.
VM1.
VM1. So this is how
Yeah,
the network.
VM2 I'm getting.
Perfect. So yeah, that is how the traffic is getting distributed right now. In my system it will not show VM2 because it's already cached my system. Now through caching I'm getting the request. Again a inbuilt feature of Microsoft. But if you want to do such caching, there's a concept of CDN. Not caching, it will basically give you a content delivery network points which it creates, and through which you can serve your web application globally throughout the world. No one will get latency. That's a different concept. This is how load balancer works, guys. I want you guys to practice this, because the next topic which we have, which it's completely based on all these small topics such as availability zone, availability set. Availability set, don't worry, if I go and delete everything and try to create a VM inside the availability set, it will get created. Okay, so try it by yourself and let me know. If not, then we'll do it again on Monday. Okay, so that's it for me. If you have any questions, please ask, and make sure whatever topics we have done in this week, there's lots of things we have done, and that is quite understandable because there are so many topics we need to cover in this entire course. So this is just a start, and we have not even touched DevOps yet. So this is just a start. Make sure practice as much you can, because once these topics are over, I'll be jumping on to Linux. Linux is very basic commands we'll see for a couple of days, and we'll see how to work with Linux and all. Then we'll start with DevOps. With DevOps, we'll include security. We'll keep on including security topics inside it. I'll not wait till the end that once we are done with DevOps, then we'll start security. No. Along with when we are writing the build pipelines, I'll be integrating SonarQube with the build pipeline. I'll be integrating code coverage, and many things we'll be doing. So whatever you see right now, these are all security concepts from the network layer, from the infrastructure layer. This will make you a good solution architect if you have a good understanding how exactly this works. Don't worry about the cloud platform. Whatever you see over here, same thing you can do it on AWS also. Same thing you can do it on Google GCP also. The only thing is the service name would be different. Over we call it as virtual network, over there that is VPC. The load balancer, the NAT, and all this concept remains same. The assigning a public IP, all this concept remains same. Okay, practice. Let me know if there's any doubt. I saw a couple of messages, I think from Saurav. Saurav was successfully able to define best and host and everything. So good, Saurav. Keep on doing that, and make sure everyone is doing, guys, because after a week you will forget everything. Keep on practicing whatever we have completed yet. I'll be sharing you the assignments. I'll be preparing the assignments based on whatever I have taught you guys, and I'll be sharing the assignments maybe by weekend. Make sure complete those assignments, and if there's any doubt, we can have a doubt solving session on Monday. Whenever if there is a doubt, we can have a doubt solving session initially, then we can start any new topic. Make sense? Okay, that's it for me. If you have any questions, please do let me know, or we can wind up the call for today. Anyone? Any questions?
Yeah, Rohit. Actually, a load balancer serves the purpose of Bastion, no, to some extent, like hiding the IP,
Hiding the
backend
IP.
IP in the sense like, yeah, backend VM's IP.
Correct. No. So no, but comparison is wrong. It
Okay.
doesn't serve any purpose of load balancer. Load balancer main role is to divert your traffic. Forget about the IP thing. You can use load balancer internally also with the private IP within the company. So yeah, forget the IP thing. Your main purpose of load balancer is to make sure the network traffic is diverted within the resources, underlying resources, whatever resources you have. That is the main. And Bastion host main purpose is to give you access to that VMs. Now if you want to connect to this VM, just imagine if you don't have a public IP assigned to this VM. I go and deassociate. How do you connect to this VM? You will be using what? You'll be using your Bastion host to connect.
Bastion. Okay. If these three, I mean, if we want to position these three together, then what would be the? Is it possible, or it
Why not? It's definitely. So that is what
possible?
you need to use the combination now. Now
Yeah.
I've taught you so many things. Availability set, you know availability set, you know availability zone, you know load balancer, you know Bastion host. So you can have something like this. You will have this virtual network, private virtual network. You have all your VMs, which is again private. You have your VMs again private.
Okay.
Okay, the only thing you have in public is your load balancer, which is in public. You're getting internal internet request. On internet, you're getting a request on a load balancer, then it coming to your virtual network, and then it is on the private IP, it is serving the request. Okay, this is working now. This is all private. The only thing is in public, this is public. Now you want to log into this VM at some given point of time. At some given point of time, you want to log into this VM. How do you log in? There's no
Oh,
22 port open. There's no
yeah.
public IP assigned. At that time, what you will do, you will have one more subnet created over here. Inside that subnet, you will have your own Bastion host created.
Bastion. Okay.
Now from internet, you're sitting over here and you want to log into internet, then you will go through this Bastion host and then you will come into this particular VMs. Now what did we use? Now I can use availability set, I can use availability zone to have more resiliency, more availability, and that combination we can use. This is how your complete combination will work in reality. Okay, make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, use case majorly like IT people can take this route, no, using the Bastion and all, but whereas load balancer for the users, like business users or something like that.
This is for accessing your application. IT people, admin people can take this route.
Admin. Yeah, admin.
Admin people can take this route, and
Okay.
anyone like you have a web application and you want to give access to the web application, then this route everyone will take.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
No problem, guys. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Let's meet on Monday and let's continue this topic. And
I have
make
one
sure.
quick question, please. If you
Yeah,
don't
Iman,
mind.
tell me. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Can you go to the Azure portal, please, and go to all resources? Yeah. I created some VMs and resource group which I deleted, but I still have this network watchers in there. I didn't create that, so
That's
I don't
okay.
want to delete it. Is it
No,
okay?
you can delete it. What happened? What exactly this network watcher is? So whenever you create a virtual network, this network watcher gets created along with it. So if you go and look into the network watcher, nothing will be there. It's completely blank. When you delete everything, and when you go into look into your resource group, where is the resource group? And if you click in this resource group of network watcher, you'll not find anything inside it once you delete it, because the network watcher gets deleted automatically. So this gets created automatically when you create a virtual network. So this is something you are not creating it. Don't worry, you can, it's just a folder which is left inside your system. You can delete that folder also. That's totally fine.
Okay, because I don't want to get charged. Okay, get it.
No, there's no charge for network watcher, as if even if you keep it, there's no harm.
Okay.
Okay guys, thank you very much. Let's meet on Monday and let's continue these topics.